If you're an accounting firm, hiring, bringing on new staff, increasing capacity, keeping them is one thing, but getting them into the door and getting them to stay those first few days is another. And would you believe it? There are so many mistakes get made in the onboarding phase of accounting hires. Jeff Phillips is with us. Jeff, I can't believe firms get this wrong.
I think it's not just firms, Rob. I think companies in general get this wrong because we close the deal, we make the hire, and we don't pay enough attention into overcoming buyer's remorse and aligning new hires with our team. And so it's easy to get it wrong, but it's also easy to get this right. And that's why we have to talk about great onboarding.
Well, wait, the hard work's been done. I've hired you. You said yes. You said you loved it. You've joined us. You've showed up. You look great there in your suit and tie. Haven't I done everything? Isn't it just a case of plugging you into your desk, getting you sign in and your passwords?
You know the answer to that question. It's a softball. Um, Rob, we talked in the previous episode about onboarding why there are three primary reasons why knowledge workers and accountants leave their jobs in the first 6 months. Number one was they weren't clear what their job is. All right, so we talked about how to make that happen in the first episode of this. The second biggest reason was they didn't have what they needed to do their job, and it became frustrating, so they walked out. The third reason was they were lonely. They were not engaged with their team. Truly, they were lonely. And this applies to remote staff. It applies to in the office staff. Great onboarding reduces turnover. And I know so many firms, and I know you do too, who are listening to this, watching this, who are struggling with losing great people. And we can track that back to those three reasons in almost every case. So great onboarding sets us up for success. Okay,
That's
go on.
excellent, Jeff. I love the way you've set that up because everything we're going to talk about today is irrelevant unless we get that first bit right and we plug them into the vision and we show them why they're here and we wrap our arms around them and say, you are welcome. This is the place to be. We've got to get that done. Once we've done that, then ease us into this idea of having the right tools for the job.
Right. So the first step, we talked about setting the vision for the hire and the team and the company. And that's really the first step in great onboarding. Now I want to talk about this, do I have what I need to do my job? And this is fluid, but it starts to getting this wrong, and we're all guilty of it, compounds, if that makes sense, and it creates frustration. It creates buyer's remorse. We don't want buyer's remorse. We want to hit the ground running. And so we want to talk. And the other thing I'll say is that in the show notes, let's do a link to Accounting Fly's onboarding checklist because we're really proud of this. We're watching our clients decrease turnover, protect the investment you've made in a hire. I mean, we just want productive teams, and we want teams to be excited they stay here. So we want them to understand the vision. Now we want them to answer the second issue of, am I clear with what my job is? So when you make a hire, there's things you got to get out of the way. There's got to be paperwork. There's got to be things filled out. A lot of times you can do that online, depending on the HR software, the payroll software you use. This should be a link. Let's send that out before they start. All right, let's get that out of the way before they start. I remember many jobs I've started in my career where I spent the first day or two just filling out paperwork. Here, just fill this out.
Oh, the joys.
Lousy experience, right? So we want to get the paperwork out of the way immediately, have the HR leader or the owner of the firm, the office manager knock that out and make it as easy as it is. There's some wonderful online tools that can onboard and get them set up for payroll.
And it's not hard, is it, this day and age, Jeff, to get 95% of that pre-filled. You know the details about the candidate. You know where they live. You know their age and date of birth. You know all of that stuff. Fill it in. Don't make them write it or type it.
No, make it online and make it simple and streamline it and don't duplicate. And it should be so easy. Yeah. So we remember we talked in a previous episode on onboarding about a vision meeting. And one of the pieces of that meeting is setting up a cadence of meetings to follow up on really the strategic, make sure we're having sort of low pressure check-ins to remind them of where we're going, but also the tactical, so that there's a disciplined cadence of meetings where you can get feedback and give feedback early on to make sure we're training them to do the job correctly. So it's really important that the training happens. We're working together and set 30-day goals, 60-day goals, 90-day goals. this is what we want to accomplish together. I'd like that to happen in that first meeting, but then we're going to follow up and have, I think they should be weekly conversations to see if we're on track of the mutually agreeable items that we both committed to getting on track. All sorts of issues are going to present themselves during this time, and your job as that hiring point person, the leader, the owner of the firm, is to, you know, untangle any knots and also reinforce the vision and reinforce how we're doing things. So let's build that schedule out in that first day, and let's commit to that for 90 days, probably a weekly check-in. That could be with a buddy or a hiring manager or the team manager. It could be with the owner of the firm. I have a great example of a small firm owner that hired a tax manager, a critical role inside a small, sub $5 million firm, Rob. And so there was multiple meetings a week just on how we do things. Now, the new hire knew taxes, but the new hire did not know how to do taxes at this firm. And so the owner wisely took time out of their schedule. If you're an owner up there, you will be more busy for 6 months after you make a key hire like this, but you will be less busy because you've delegated this properly over time. So that's number one, is like, let's just work together on setting those 30, 60, 90-day goals, meet weekly to advance towards them. This includes the second piece is a work plan on how to transition the work to them. So diagram for them, where do they sit in the workflow of the organization? If they're a tax manager, how is the tax prep work flowing up to them? Where does the work go after that? And so let's have that in printed form. They might be needing new software training. So can the firm do that in-house? Should we pay someone to come in and do training in UltraTax or CCH or Intuit or whatever product that they use? Let's put that on a calendar, and let's, as part of our check-ins, are we okay on tax training? Are we okay with the technology training that we're doing? If you have an office manager, let's set them up with meetings to get them immediately set up on all the communication tools that the firm uses. They might use Zoom, they might use Teams. Let's do that and take the work off their plate, answer questions, be proactive, make this so seamless. And so if it's a hybrid team, we have remote staff. Let's put the dates on the calendar for scheduled visits to the office. So I suggest the first week for a hybrid company, you bring in your remote staff for the full first week or first 4 days, and then we bring them in quarterly. If it's in the office, we need to have strategic quarterly check-ins with the new hire to make sure we're accomplishing objective 2, which is I have what I need to do my job. And we want to reinforce that constantly with the team.
I'm mindful here, Jeff. They say the average accounting firm runs between 100 and 150 different pieces of tech and apps and software and platforms and channels and portals and all kinds of things like this. There must be an element of unlearning. If I come into a Zoom's environment and I've only used Teams, I've got to unlearn what I knew and start to learn a whole new. If I've been with Iris and now I'm with CCH, or insert your own software vendor of choice there, then there's a huge amount of patience required, isn't there, in letting people unravel everything they've learned and bring in the new stuff.
There's going to be some frustration there.
Yeah.
And I've lived it. I was in a Google Zoom environment for 10 years, then changed jobs 4 years ago, and I went to a full Microsoft shop. But what the company did so well for me was they assigned the office manager to me to teach me how we were using Teams, because I didn't know. I'd never been in Teams before. Now it's pretty intuitive, but how we organize our Teams chat and how we organize our files, they gave me a sheet of paper of who owns what inside the firm. So when I have a question, I could call our office manager who oversaw Teams, right? So that's in writing. It made my job easier. And then 2, we had scheduled meetings where she could show me how to use these tools. It's also helpful to have a sheet of, this is the stuff we use. And here's the contact person for each thing that we use. This can get overwhelming, and this can violate rule number 2, which is, do I have what I need to do my job? If I'm constantly frustrated because I can't find the files that I need to work on my clients, I'm going to throw my hands in the air and be like, why is this so hard? Why did I make this decision to leave this firm? So these are simple systems we can set up to make people confident they made the right choice.
And what I don't want to be doing is spending hours online with tech support or putting in support tickets and having to wait for answers. There's a chain of things, and if I'm slowed down in one thing, it stops me going on to the next thing. So this has got to be as smooth as possible.
It's got to be as smooth as possible. And that takes putting things in writing and having owners of each area of responsibility for the software, and and making it easy. This is equally important as signing a new client.
Right.
So treat it like that, because we don't want to be here again in the same role 6 months from now, a year from now. So
Great.
this is a constant conversation of, do you have what you need to do your job? And if not, we got to treat this as a priority investment and make sure that they have what they need.
Okay, so they bought into the vision. They're glad they came. They've got everything they need for the job. You've set them all up. They are good to go. What's next?
So this is my favorite part. We talked about how the number 3 reason why knowledge workers leave jobs in 6 months is they feel lonely and they feel unengaged from their team. I think you can have so many gains from getting this next part right. So our onboarding suggestions for team engagement is, number 1, before they start. And this is a checklist. Remember, this is just a system, but there's a team of people who are designed to welcome new hires. Maybe if it's a 6-person firm, it's everybody. If it's a 20-person team, it's everybody. If it's a big firm, it's a team dedicated to the new hire. Send them before they start, before their first day of the job. I want the team reaching out to the new hire, sending them LinkedIn messages, emails, phone calls, Zoom meetings, and welcoming them to the team, introducing themselves, telling them about themselves, asking the new hire questions, and telling them how excited we are that they're going to be here. And I have seen that make such a profound impact on new hires, because they show up to that first team meeting or a team Zoom, and these are friendly faces, not strangers, who are just standard operating procedure. So that's number 1. Number 2 is assign a buddy system / mentor whose job it is to troubleshoot anything that they're dealing with. I don't know how to get Teams open and find a file. Well, the buddy is a good person to either point them in the right direction or help them with it and train them. Just the buddy needs to understand they're going to be spending a few minutes a day possibly, and the buddy needs to be proactive, reaching out with them, checking in on them, connecting them to the company, introducing them to other people. If it's in an office, take them out to lunch. And so I can't emphasize this enough. If we can get ahead early, it would be fantastic. Thirdly is just handwritten notes from team members, from hiring members, saying we're so excited about this.
Nice.
When my first job out of college, I worked at a software company. They sent me my offer letter in a box with a Tiffany pen. They said, we wanted you to give you a Tiffany pen. I was a college student, Rob.
Wow.
Low level, entry level hire. I signed my offer letter with that Tiffany pen, and with it was a handwritten note from the CEO of the company, who saying how excited that they were that I was going to hire. It was such a classy touch.
Priceless.
And it connected me to that firm.
That's the point. You get a knock on the door from the managing partner or the boss or the CEO or whatever it might be, somebody really high up that's God in that place, saying your first name, and they're really glad that you're here, and the door is always open. Something like that. You can't put a price on it.
This is all driven by checklists too. It does not have to be a winging it situation. And again, in the show notes, we'll have links to Accounting Fly's onboarding checklist for new hires. And this works, Accounting Fly's remote, mostly hiring, but it works for remote hires and it works for in person as well.
And that can be done before they start, can't it? Those messages and emails saying, really looking forward to meeting you and so glad you're joining us. It doesn't have to be on the day.
My opinion is it ought to happen before the start. Usually there's a 30 to 60 day window after they sign an offer letter before they start. This is the exact moment we want the team reaching out to them with the handwritten letters, with connections for a 15-minute Zoom chat. And guess what you're going to do on that? It's just creating personal connections, introducing each other. They don't want to show up a stranger.
Yes.
Right? And if we know that the third most popular reason why people leave these jobs is because they're lonely, they're starting their job unlonely. And that's on you.
I read somewhere that people stick at a job if they've got a best friend there. They've got those allies there. They've got people they can offload to and chat with and have coffee with and even talk about non-business stuff. Now, you don't make a best friend on day one, but you're going to bond with people, aren't you? And you're going to have chemistry with people, and you're going to find out who you get along with. The quicker that happens, the quicker you cement that new hire into the fabric of the firm.
Yeah. It we want to be connected with the people we work with, and this is a profession where introverts are probably the majority of the profession. So this is just a system to help people not feel lonely in their jobs, because we know that's driving them away from their jobs.
So I'm seeing in my mind the word momentum here.
Mm-hmm.
We're rolling the stone. This is an investment. We've got to put love into it, care into it, thought into it. We've got to nurture it and make it feel special. It's an investment, but you're building momentum all the time, aren't you? Positive momentum, even before they walk through the door.
Culture is all about momentum, and it's just stepping out of the day-to-day job and working on the business. We all ought to do that more. And this is a no-brainer. And if you can build a checklist around it, which we have built for you, take it. It's free, and use it and follow it, and watch your people become more engaged with your firm.
And on that checklist, Jeff, at the end of day one, is there a line item that says, sit down with your new hire before they go and say, how was your day? How did you find it today? How are you feeling? Is that part of it?
If you're not asking those questions, you must, because and you can always tie them back to these three issues. How's your day? Do you have what you need to do your job?
Mm-hmm.
Are you connecting with your teammates?
Very good.
And do you know what your job is? It's such a powerful set of questions to ask, and you should ask them hundreds of times over the course of a year for your staff.
Jeff, we're talking about talent on this podcast, and specifically in this two-parter, we've nailed what best practice onboarding looks like in this day and age in a hybrid world. Just summarize for us why people leave in the first few days and get disillusioned, and what a great onboarding process does for it.
You've made such a profound investment to hire someone new. It causes so much opportunity and so much potential pain, and it costs a lot of money. So you want to protect your investment with great onboarding to make sure we build momentum. And if we know that we can address vision and their clarity on knowing their role and giving them what they need to do their job and helping them connect with a team through great onboarding, knowing that makes your firm more productive and more profitable and reduces turnover in every case. And so it's a must-have for a properly run firm to be able to onboard new talent effectively, and it can all be done in a checklist.
Just a final word of warning for firms that are too complacent to put this in place, or we've never had a problem with onboarding, why do we need to change it? You think, well, the world's changing. The people out there are changing. The economy's changing. The talent pipeline is changing. What worked for you last week doesn't necessarily work for you this week. There's an element here of keeping current, isn't there, with your onboarding?
It seems like I don't have a conversation in a given week where an owner has told me they've lost somebody inside the firm recently to another opportunity.
Yeah.
And so this is a more current way to address that. And the recruiters are coming for the talent. And remember, the war for talent is over and the talent won. So we're going to have to play the talent's game in order to build successful companies.
Jeff Phillips, this has been excellent. I want to ask you one final thing. If you were to cast your eye over onboarding in 12, 24 months, 3 years' time, any trends, what do you see coming up in what might change with onboarding? Or the 3-point plan that you've set out, is it always going to be like that from here on in?
I think as technology changes and as the world changes, we're going to have to adapt. But we know that those three reasons why people leave knowledge jobs, that data is 5 or 6 years old. And so I think those are more principles that will last time and it seems to align with all of our collective mistakes as managers in the first place, is we're not providing enough clarity. Yes, there are other challenges. There's going to be more remote work. The PE's influence on accounting is going to change how people are hired and retained. But it still goes back to really nice basic blocking and tackling of how we treat people and create productive, engaged companies.
Evergreen. Love it. Jeff Phillips, thanks so much for that. That's been a tour de force in professional and best practice onboarding for accounting firms to keep their best talent and lock them in for a long, long time. Thank you.
Thank you.